to 25 minutes. Oh, there we go. Our recording message just came on. So again, we'll take about I'll take about 20 to 25 minutes to go through the slides that we've prepared, and then we'll have a chance for kind of an open discussion. And I would encourage folks as we're going along, if you have a question that you'd like to ask or a point that you would like to make, please feel free to use the chat function and put your question or comment in the chat function. And we can also, I'm sure, find some time to just come off of mute and ask a question, assuming that we'll have plenty of time for that, and I think we will. Toward the end of our discussion, we have a survey mechanism that we'd like to send along to you. It'll come to you via email, and it's a short survey that we've been using with other constituency groups. Literally 3 pieces to it. The first part is to share your thoughts on the 6 priorities that we've identified, and give us your sense of weighting or priority, ranking 1 through 6. They're all important, we realize, but it'll be helpful for us to understand where people think we ought to put primary focus among those 6 priorities. There's a part of the survey where you can offer in narrative form your thoughts about any of what we will be discussing tonight. You can make new suggestions or offer comments as you'd like. And then one of our trustees actually had an idea that we've been carrying forward, which is to share one word, if it's possible for you to do that, one word that would describe MPH to you. So with that, we've got the agenda in front of us, and let's move on to the next slide, Katie. Okay, so just a tiny bit of context for the strategic planning process generally, and also at MPH. And as I was thinking about where I'd start my comments on this particular slide, I'm using my own experience, which is that I've been at MPH now for 2.5 years, so a relative newcomer, and yet I've appreciated a lot of the experiences that I've had in those 2.5 years, and a lot of conversations with folks. I also would say that in terms of context, I go back to that 14-15 year. It was a difficult year, to say the least, for MPH. I use the language that it was an existential moment for our school. And difficult as it was, MPH worked through that experience and demonstrated what I think has been characteristic of the school for a long, long time, where just a lot of resilience has been shown, a lot of determination to sort of get back on a good path, and all of which has sort of underpinnings of relationships. I can't tell you how often we hear from everyone, and I would join this group to talk about just how important the relationships that get formed in this community, how important they are to the education we're offering, to the support that we receive from our families, from our alumni, and that sort of thing. So it's been that I think has been sort of characteristic of MPH. Since that sort of 14-15 year, the school has invested considerably in a number of different efforts that have been designed to really kind of really get a close look, a close examination of strengths and weaknesses in our at our school. And I've got an inventory of different professional partnerships that have been struck since the 14-15 year. There have been at least 4 of them where we've looked at our program, we've looked at admissions, we've looked at communications and marketing. We've gone through an accreditation process that has bubbled up all kinds of conversations. And then, in the 2.5 years that I've been here, we've done what we call a number of SWOT exercises with different constituency groups. SWOT is an acronym for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, where people have a chance to share their thoughts in all of those areas. We've gotten a lot of engagement with our students who participated in that SWOT process, and they're also involved in the exercise that we're going through right now. Otherwise, just a significant number of conversations that have taken place internally among my colleagues, and then at the board level as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the board's role in the strategic planning process for MPH. As part of this process, we are conducting a campus master planning process that began in actually January of 2020. It was put on hold as we began to realize the full effects of the pandemic in March of 2020. Paused there for a little while and then resumed, and we're working through that right now. I would also just share with you that it is a typical experience for schools anyway, and my experience has been solely in independent schools over the last 32 years. It's a fairly conventional kind of sequence of experiences where you'll do some strategic planning work. Campus master plan may or may not be part of that work. There are all kinds of activities related to engaging in conversations and getting people's viewpoints on a wide range of topics. And oftentimes, a strategic plan will help to inform the goals of a capital campaign. And so we're not in a capital campaign right now at MPH, but we are we're taking steps now to prepare for a campaign. And so we've got a lot of the work started in that area, anticipating that we will enter into a capital campaign at some point following the endorsement of a strategic plan. And a note here about our board of trustees and the support that our board has provided our efforts at the school. Again, we all are aware of the pandemic and the extraordinary commitment that has needed to be made for MPH. Our board has been incredibly supportive during that process, helping us with resources we needed to keep the school open. The board is also very much interested in not just sort of surviving or getting by. The board is taking a much more sort of proactive stance and encouraging our best efforts to think about ways to thoughtfully develop our program further, to think about our staffing model, and to get to a point where we're appropriately staffed, and essentially to look at every area of school life, really deeply, thoughtfully, and as we do that work, develop the program further so that we're putting forward a product here, an education and an experience that we feel is the best in show, not just sort of relative to our sort of peer schools locally or in Central New York, but to really build the program out in the best ways that we can. And again, the board has been incredibly supportive there. The role of the board as it relates to a strategic plan, first of all, the board's been very much involved in conversations over the last 2 years anyway, in thinking about some of the areas in which we've highlighted to make some improvements. So there's been an ongoing conversation at the board level that way. During our meetings in September and October, discussion about our strategic priorities was very much front and center. And it may be that at the January board meeting or maybe in February, we are at a point where we're ready to confirm what our priorities are for a strategic plan for MPH. So again, that's just some context for the process that has been ongoing for actually in some instances for several years now. All right, we'll take a look now at 6 priorities that have been identified for our school. And what I'm going to do is to touch on each of these areas. I'll move through it fairly quickly. Again, I'd really like to get a sense of how people feel about these priorities. If you've got some specific ideas, thoughts to share, really want to make sure we hear what you have to share with us. So we've got these 6 priorities. We'll go to our first priority here, and they're in no particular order necessarily. They're all important. So Katie, if we can go to the next slide. All right. So one of our priorities is the idea of curriculum and program development. And on each of these next 5 slides, here's the first of the 6, but on each of these slides, we have prepared and want to make sure everybody understands that this is draft language at this point, but we've created what we're calling a vision statement for this particular priority. This statement will absolutely be modified, fine-tuned, tweaked, what have you. But what we'll want to do is to create a vision statement for each of the 6 priorities, and then as we go further into our planning, we will be developing goals for each of the priorities, and then we'll have attendance strategies to achieve each of our goals. We're not there at this point. What we have now are the 6 priorities and some draft language for the vision statement for each of these. So in this particular area of curriculum and program development, again, I'm actually sort of amazed by the work that has happened in the last year and a half during some challenging times, and really happening among my colleagues who are eager to take a look at what we're offering as an education. And so we're assessing sort of what we believe are the strengths and weaknesses of the program we're offering. And we've been able to launch a few new programmatic offerings in just the last couple of years. So as one example, and there are several others, but as one example, this year we developed a program for our students, exclusively for upper school students, juniors and seniors, mostly seniors at this point, who have an opportunity to take an EMT course. It's a very practical option for our students. It's a pretty serious commitment. There was a rigorous application process so that we were being clear as to the commitment that was going to be required. And that's up and running. And from what I understand, the students involved in that course are doing an excellent job. They've got to take it very seriously because of the nature of the offering. And there will be an examination in the spring. And I suspect that we'll have a number of our students who are licensed, qualified EMTs. So that's one idea that has developed over the course of the last 6 or 7 months and is in place now. But those are the kinds of things that we're going to want to take a look at. What are some of the other areas in which we can enrich the experience here for our students? All right, let's take a look at the next priority. So leadership and faculty excellence. Let me start by saying I have just enormous respect for my colleagues, and we've got some serious talent here. And so I think we're operating from a position of relative strength. With that said, just a brief kind of history lesson. When the 14-15 year hit, the school needed to make a number of decisions and really had to sort of scale back with respect to its staffing model. And there were some other difficult decisions that certainly needed to be needed to happen, and did happen. And and so that's understandable. And again, I would point to the board, which has been consistently clear with me that this is not we're not interested necessarily in just sort of staying the course and looking to find ways to cut expenses, but rather we want to get a sense of what does MPH look like with a fully kind of loaded program offering and with a staffing model that can support excellent teaching and learning at our school, that can support areas, perhaps administrative areas that require leadership. So we've been active in this area. Coming into this year, we hired a number of new educators and people who are doing playing various roles at the school, and we're constantly taking a look at what are some other areas where perhaps a strategic investment, maybe in a leadership opportunity or two, will make some sense for us. You can see the draft of a vision statement. And just to give you one example of what we're talking about, right now there's an active conversation going on about the idea of a person who, or maybe more than one person, who might take on what would be traditionally sort of the role of a dean of faculty. We want to make sure that we are providing our educators with as much good direction and support as we possibly can along the lines of professional development. And so that's an idea for another potential leadership role at the school. What I would also just say here is that as we transition from a strategic plan and we begin to sort of activate our strategies with that plan, maybe through a capital campaign, there are some creative ways, important ways in which we can provide some immediate support for these kinds of roles, and also importantly, adding to our endowment in certain areas will also be important for us to consider as a long-term strategy. A simple example might be taking a look at the compensation packages for our educators and understanding where our status is relative to what our peer schools in the local area are offering in terms of salaries, compensation packages, that sort of thing. We want to be in a position where we can compete for the best talent out there. And part of that equation is that we're really strong in the area of compensation and professional development and a whole host of other areas. All right, so let's take a look at the next priority. Okay, so this is student access and family support. Again, as a relative newcomer to MPH, I was really proud of and pleased with the level of support this school has been providing students and families from a broad range of backgrounds. And we believe that making this education accessible to talented young people and families that understand who we are, what our mission is, and the kind of education we're offering, that we want to do everything we can to make this education possible for those students and those families. And again, MPH has made a really significant commitment in this area in recent years, certainly, and I think probably over the long term. And yet there are some ways in which we could do a little bit better, I think, for our students and families that for whom this education from a financial standpoint is really out of reach. So there'll be a whole range of families that we're talking about here requiring different levels of support. And one of the areas that we're taking a look at in addition to increasing our endowment in this particular area is the way in which once our students are here, we as a school are able to support our students and families in an ongoing manner. And just to give you one example that's sort of bubbled up in the last couple of months, and again, I'm really proud of my colleagues for identifying this as an issue for us and then taking action. You know, for our seniors, we've got a senior class, and we've got members of the senior class who are going through the college application process, and yet for some it's difficult to literally go and drive to different colleges to see them, to be on campus, to go through the experience of being on campus. And a few of my colleagues have sort of offered up themselves to take a number of students out to visit different colleges and that sort of thing, which is a typical kind of gesture by MPH. I'm very proud of that. And yet, you know, when we accept and enroll students who are needing, and we're providing a significant amount of financial aid, we also want to be thinking about the ways in which we as a school can continue to support that experience as the year goes along. So it's more than just affording tuition. It's the way in which we're able to support our students as we go through a school year. All right, let's go to the next priority. So campus and facilities improvements. I mentioned that we are in the process of looking at our campus and developing a campus master plan. And this is a picture actually of the inside of the farmhouse, which is going through a significant renovation right now. We did some tours on Friday. We're going to look to provide another opportunity before the end of the calendar year, I think. But the idea of a campus master plan is for us is to take a look at all of our facilities, all of our campus, and to think about to understand where we've got areas that are going to require perhaps immediate attention because of some deferred maintenance issues, where we can eventually schedule out what a good deferred maintenance plan would look like in terms of supporting some infrastructure improvements, and then also as it intersects with some of our curriculum and program ideas, we need to think about what facilities perhaps are going to be required to achieve, say, a programmatic initiative. And so there are small items that would be included in this plan, and then there'll be some larger items and a comprehensive plan that we'll be able to take a look at and identify, perhaps in phases, what we want to accomplish in the years ahead. And so, you know, as an example here, and, you know, this is, I'm going to provide an example. Again, we're a long way away from actually identifying this as a specific priority within this area, but it may be that it is. We've been thinking about the use of this larger facility, which has served the school well over many years. It's been built over a period of time. And we've got all of our students here in this facility, except for our early learners over at the CEL. But we're running a kindergarten through grade 12 program in this larger facility. And we've been looking at and thinking about the specific needs of our lower school students, and thinking about the benefits of the lower school perhaps having its own facility, running its own schedule, having its own staffing model, and thinking about the idea of a separate facility that might be created for our lower school, which would then allow for us to use the building we're in right now to specifically create a presence for our middle school and our upper schoolers. So that's an idea that has been discussed in recent months. And again, I'm not saying that that's exactly what we're going to be doing, but I wanted to give at least one example of how we're thinking about the campus master plan. All right, next priority: financial sustainability. So again, I think everyone is aware that MPH had a significant moment in the 2014-2015 year. That moment was characterized largely as a financial issue, and it was there were some underlying reasons why we got ourselves to that point from a financial standpoint, and we're taking a look. We want to understand all of those underlying issues. But in this particular area, what we really are are interested to do is to get a good sense of what does this education look like, feel like, what will it cost to run the education that is fully built out from a programmatic standpoint, where we have a staffing model that's appropriate for the program we're running, and then to understand what our various revenue centers are, and where we need to make some improvements. And we're going to be in a position to share some more specific information, I would say, in the next month or so. But as we're taking a look at this, the MPH financial picture looks like the following in just sort of rough terms. From a revenue center standpoint alone, and we're taking a look at the expense side of the ledger as well. There's been a lot of good work that's taken place there, so we need to look at the way in which we're deploying resources. But the single largest revenue center for us is, not surprising to this group, is what we charge for tuition, and we've got some fees associated with the experience, and those tuition and fees account for about 68% of our revenue overall. So 68% is what it is, and there are no sort of standards or conventions. Every independent school is very different depending on where it is in terms of the resources that it has, where its endowment might be, that sort of thing, where its annual giving is. But for us, about 68% of our revenue comes in through tuition and fees. We have an annual fund, the MPH fund here, and we also receive gifts that help to offset some budget items. They might be more restricted in nature, but they're budget offsetting gifts. And the typical experience for us is about 9% of our revenue comes in through charitable support. MPH has an endowment. Our endowment's at about $8 million right now. There's a formula that is used to calculate what the income from our endowment is as it relates to support for the operating budget. And right now, our endowment is generating about $340,000 to $350,000 every year that goes directly into our operating budget, and that accounts for about 5% of our operating revenue. We run community programs, auxiliary programs, and that contributes modestly to the bottom line for us at about 1% of our revenue coming in through those programs. We receive some other revenue through the state, through reimbursements and that kind of thing, and that accounts for about 7 or 8%. And then MPH has also been the beneficiary of what I would refer to as special funding. And this is really coming in through our board of trustees. And there's an annual contribution that is made to support the overall experience at MPH. And that amount contributes to between 8 and 10% of the total every year. And I want to make sure that all of our families are aware of that composition of revenue sources. And as I mentioned, all of those areas, each one of them deserves and is getting a lot of attention for us to think about how do we do better in each of these areas so that our school doesn't require what I've referred to as sort of special funding as we go forward. Now, everything is in a good place. That special funding will continue, and yet at the same time, it's going to be good for the health of the financial health of our school and the long-term viability, that we take a close look at it, increasing and enhancing some of those revenue areas. All right, and then the last priority is is telling the story. A lot of people have encouraged and have asked for and really want us to do a better job at telling the MPH story. And so there's some good work happening right now. I, I I mentioned a number of professional partnerships that have been formed over recent years. A couple of them have been very significantly focused on communications and marketing, branding, really with an orientation to the admissions process. And we felt like this is a significant enough of an area for us that we want to identify it as one of our priorities for the school going forward. So some work is happening with that in this particular area. In fact, I mentioned the survey that will help to contribute to our developing this kind of compelling message as we go forward. So that's my, I'd call it a fairly brief recap of the priorities that we've identified and how we came to identify them. And now I really want to make sure. Let's see, it's 5:33. Want to make sure that we have an opportunity for folks to ask questions, make suggestions, all of the above. And I don't know if anyone has used the chat function. My colleague Katie Ray is sort of the person behind the scenes who's handling some of the logistics here. And Katie, do we have any questions that have come in or thoughts that have come in through the chat function?
Not yet, but everybody's welcome to use that function. I apologize, my little kiddo's in the background here, but we did have one comment when you mentioned that faculty members were taking seniors to visit colleges, and somebody, Sandra wrote the MPH effect. So sort of alluding to the fact that this is how we do at MPH.
Well, that is a true statement. You could write a book about some of the extraordinary commitments that people have made here, whether they're among the professionals at MPH, or and significantly among some of our families who have done some extraordinary things to support other students, including at times bringing people into your home and really extraordinary stuff to help out where you can. So yeah, it's been amazing. All right. If anyone has a thought, reaction to what I shared, question, comment, I think it'd be fine if you wanted to take yourself off mute and go ahead and ask.
Dave, it's Sandra. Since no one, I'll start it. Sometimes if someone starts, it's better.
Thank you, Sandra.
I'd show you me, but then you'd see me cooking. So, but I was intrigued by, my son has been at MPH since kindergarten. So we have gone through the lower school. We have gone through the 2014-15 crisis, as it will. And I'm intrigued by your statement about the lower school, which I think is great, but it's always the case that I worry about the lower school, even though my son, is in upper school now, given that it just has lower enrollment. So I was just wondering what you thought about whether it's sort of a, if we build it, they will come type of thing, or will there be a different structure in order to sort of maybe try to incentivize students to come into lower school? And I'll leave it at that.
Well, thanks, Sandra. I appreciate the observation and the question. And what I would say is that actually in recent years, our lower school has become quite popular. I don't know exactly what the enrollment is in our lower school. We've got Amy Abdo on the line here, but I'm going to say, a good 150 or so students are in our lower school. And we've seen a significant increase in interest, especially in our pre-K and K grades. When I was looking at this role in 2018 and then into the winter and spring of 2019 and taking a look at every bit of information I could get my hands on, we had several grades in the lower school where there were single digits in respective grades. And I think there was a time when maybe we combined a couple of grades. And so it was a really challenging situation from an enrollment standpoint at that time. This year, and as we look at next year, we've had the sort of happy challenge of needing to create second sections in a number of different grades. I think the enrollment in our pre-K and kindergarten classes has, I don't know if exploded is too hyperbolic, but it's increased significantly. And we're really heartened by the increased enrollment in various other grades. So while Field of Dreams is my favorite movie, and If You Build It, They Will Come is a favorite sentiment of mine, I'm not sure that's exactly where we are right now with the lower school. And really what the focus for us is, if you think about it, I mean, we've got a considerable facility here, and we tend to kind of run on the same schedule, whether you're 7 years old or you're 17 years old. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, but we feel like we've got an opportunity to really, I think, customize an experience for our younger students that will better meet them where they are in terms of their development and growth. So that's the perspective I would offer. Amy Abdo, would you care to share anything in addition to that?
Yeah, I would love to, because this is a happy update, especially for the families that have been with us all the way through. The lower school is currently the largest division of the 3 divisions. We are at 148, and we have 2 sections of pre-K, kindergarten, 2nd, 3rd, and 5th grades. So it's pretty phenomenal. We're bursting at the seams, and although the library space is beautiful, it's definitely something we want to give back to the school. So we've felt very fortunate to be there, but we are definitely just in classrooms that were not meant to be for students right now. So we would love that opportunity to grow outward, but we're there with the kids. There's lots of little people.
That's great. I mean, obviously when we get into the upper school, we don't always hear everything that's happening in the lower school, and that's absolutely fantastic. So
Great. Thanks, Sandra.
We do have one question regarding future plans for the theater and barn renovation. Can you speak on that?
Yeah. Well, that is front and center for us. And again, nothing has been decided definitively. That might be redundant, but we haven't come up with an exact plan. With that said, before I got here, the idea of doing something to enhance or create a new performing arts facility was very much front and center. And the barn is the barn's a little bit of a conundrum for us right now. It's really not being used. My guess, I would say, we're probably using in any given day maybe 20 to 30% of that very large structure. Otherwise, it helps us with some storage items and that kind of thing. But we've got to part of the campus master planning process has been to take a look at, in every case, structurally, what would it take to bring, for example, the barn back online as a functional, usable space. And what we're feeling right now is that the cost required would be prohibitive, and that we could probably do something better with a kind of a fresh start, if you will. So we're taking a look at where the barn is located, the footprint that it's on, and beginning to develop some programmatic ideas for how to use some facility in that area that would accommodate whatever the programmatic goals are that we come up with. and I mentioned this, and it's juxtaposed with what we just discussed with the lower school. But that's it. That's an area actually that we're thinking about. Okay, what does it look like if the lower school is located there, and what does it look like if maybe our student support services is located in that area? Envision a new facility. I don't think a renovation is probably likely for the barn. We like the look. We like the aesthetic. We want to honor the way the sort of campus, the history of our campus. We're doing that right now with the farmhouse. And I think the aesthetic of the barn is appealing. The inner workings, I'm going to assume most people have been in the barn. It's like a rabbit warren in there. I mean, you're constantly lefts and rights, and it's not sort of laid out in a way that makes it kind of accessible and really usable. So we're looking at that area as the site for a new facility that perhaps could accommodate our lower school. We've talked about the idea of moving our dining program over to that area as a possibility to serve the middle school and the upper school sort of on one side, and then to customize a dining experience for our lower schoolers on maybe a sort of on the other side of what might be the kitchen or a servery of that kind. And again, I'm sharing thoughts with you that are part of the conversations we're having right now. I don't want to give anyone the idea that we've made these decisions and we're doing it, but this is where our latest thinking is. And then with our current dining room, we're thinking a lot about the arts, performing arts, and might that be an area where we can create some new spaces for performing arts, whether it's music, instrument training, what have you, or theater or that sort of thing. And part of that thinking is actually, well, we do have our sort of visual arts spaces in that area. The Phoenix is a nice sort of juncture, if you will, a nexus that might be a natural where we have a bit of an arts wing, that kind of thing. We're also taking a look at the STEAM Park, which is just a fabulous resource that's gotten a lot of use in the last year and a half, and thinking about what does that look like if we created more arts programming in that area where we could open up into the STEAM Park for some performance or rehearsal, that sort of thing. So anyway, that was a lot of words for kind of what we're thinking about in terms of planning right now.
Dave, there was an additional question to that about the master plan with regard to perhaps the sports, so an outdoor track in the fields, if there's any thought there.
Yeah. Well, the school, as I think most people know, we've made a pretty significant commitment in recent years to the area of athletics, and what we also feel is that as much as we appreciate, in the case of our gym, sort of a state-of-the-art gym, it's a great facility, it gets a ton of use. We still feel like if we had another sort of practice space, whether it was a gym or a kind of a multi-purpose indoor type facility where we could be doing some additional practices or even games, that sort of thing. We have some limitations scheduling wise because of some of those space needs. There have been conversations about the idea of a turf field and creating, maybe a more durable and versatile, if not 4-season, certainly 3-season outdoor facility. The idea of a track has been part of the conversation. So even though we've had some nice improvements in this particular area, it continues to be a priority for us.
Hi, Dave. This is Kathy Mahoney, if I may. I just got home, so I'm putting myself back on camera. Thank you for all you do. It's truly amazing that you've only been there for 2.5 years and you've lived through these particular 2.5 years. So kudos to you and your staff. I have just, in my new role as an administrator myself at Hannibal, I have been assigned as an AP coordinator. and I'm blown away by the options that are available. And I wondered if there was any consideration of expanding the AP offerings at MPH. For my own two, Catherine and Annie, that's been a game changer. They are easily able to pick up minors in their respective colleges. And I think that that's been that's why. I mean, they both went to school with a semester plus under their belt. So I just wondered if you had any thoughts on expanding that program.
Well, we have thoughts, Kathy, and you may not appreciate the direction we're going in, but we've for a couple of years now taken a look at AP courses at MPH, and we've thought a lot about the benefits that they bring to our students and to our school, and where we've got some constraints because of the AP offerings that we have, and. We've got Fred Montas on the line here, so I'm going to ask him to elaborate a little bit further. But before Fred joins in, we've got our academic council taking a look at this particular area right now and thinking about whether or not we will continue to offer AP courses. Now, we're not going to make any sort of sudden decisions here, and we're not going to, for students who are involved in AP courses now, we're going to make sure that they're able to continue. But our inclination is to essentially create what we think could be a stronger, better offering that we develop, and do so without the constraints that we do feel with some of our AP offerings. So it's different than what you're experiencing, Kathy, and we know that there are some students who have absolutely thrived within the context of AP course offerings, and yet on balance, we've got to think about whether or not this will be something we'll continue with or not. Fred, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, you said that well, Dave. The academic council is considering this. We have a subcommittee looking at advanced courses and what we want them to look like. One thing the pandemic highlighted for us last year is that the College Board has its priorities and MPH has its priorities, and they don't always line up. Last year, the College Board just marched in lockstep with the AP courses and said, this is how we're going to do it. And the way we're doing school, we realized that kids aren't going to be able to do those courses that way. And as an independent school, we have a lot of flexibility, resources that other schools don't. And as an independent school also, it's a challenge at times to, we're not sure that it's always aligned with our mission as an independent school to, offer courses that have its own priority. The College Board sets a kind of a national standard. And that limits the kind of flexibility and independence that we like to see in our courses. So something we're taking a close look at.
Yeah, I appreciate the thoughtfulness that's going into that decision. I wonder, because the teachers at MPH are phenomenal, I wonder if you would even consider just allowing a test-only option for some of the kids, where you're not constrained by the AP curriculum necessarily, but you are able to offer the test. Because it is a game changer for my two grads. Ben doesn't participate in any of that, but I'm hopeful Molly will. So just a thought. If you're moving in a different direction, I appreciate you sharing that with us.
Thank you, Kathy.
Could I ask a follow-on question on the AP? Could we have, and I know you don't want to turn this discussion into an AP discussion because obviously it's midstream in terms of the decision making, but there is a way in which the APs are working as a proxy for both grades given grade inflation nationally and for like the GREs and other standardized tests, which are not necessarily required at the same rate that they used to be. So does that weigh into the discussion about the APs, number one, and number two, would the test only option be a way to mitigate some of the concerns about being competitive for universities that students might want to get into. Would that be a way of mitigating that?
I think what we can, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Fred.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll just say quickly that it might be a way to mitigate it, but I'm concerned also about sending mixed signals. Say that, oh, we're not going to offer AP courses, but we think these exams, these nationally normed exams are important. So you still have to cover all this material, even though we're saying we don't offer AP courses. A number of independent schools have moved away from AP courses, and they try to play both sides of that game. And I'm not sure that that's in our best interest. It's definitely something that we've been talking about. But again, yeah, that's something we're aware of. In terms of colleges that consider it, where my son went to school, he had 3 suite mates, all went to independent schools. None of them had taken an AP course. And he went to a highly selective college. So it's not something that's, I think it's not something that matches the impression that we sometimes think it does.
We can,
schools.
Yeah,
we'll have many opportunities as we get closer to make a decision to open up conversations with parents about where we're going and why we're doing it.
Yeah. Thanks, Corey. Other comments, questions about the strategic priorities that we've shared with you? All right. We've got a couple folks who are waving goodbye. I think what I'd like to do is, again, my colleague Katie Ray, working behind the scenes here. I believe that everybody who's on the call needed to essentially register with your email address. And so if it hasn't happened already, it will soon happen, where Katie will send along to you the survey that we're working with to field feedback and questions and get your thoughts on the priorities and a little help maybe with some of the marketing work that we're doing. So you should be seeing that in your email.
Sorry to interrupt, Dave. We have one question, it looks like.
Okay, I'm not. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I'm not. Yeah, I just want to say that. Thank you, and please, if it probably won't take you more than 10 minutes. I'd be surprised if it took 10 minutes. Thanks for sharing your thoughts through that mechanism. All right, Katie, what do we have for a question?
It looks like we have a hand raised.
Yes. Thank you, Dave. I was late in the meeting, and so I probably have already missed some of the strategic priorities you were talking about. But my question is about foreign language offerings, and my understanding is that the Mandarin teacher is not full-time yet, and I'm wondering whether you're considering to make Mandarin Chinese instructions available to middle school students. As far as I understand, it's only available to high school students. And as we all know, that it's pretty late for a high school student to start picking up the language. And given that we have a Mandarin teacher, I would be interested in having my child, and I know that some of our friends' parents as well are interested in getting early exposure to Mandarin if possible. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't been involved in a conversation really about at what point do we make available our world languages offerings. And so, Fred, Amy, do you have any insights on that? And as far as I'm concerned, we can keep an open mind to and think about making that available in the middle school. Although I'm speaking a little out of turn because there may be a good reason why we're not doing that right now. Fred, do you have any insights there?
Yeah, we have talked about ways to introduce Mandarin to middle school students. It's something that we were looking at. We're just having very preliminary conversations about.
And Amy Abdo, did you want to add something or?
No, just that in the past, sometimes the number of students influenced what we were able and not able to offer. And now as the lower school's getting bigger, it makes sense to project the middle school will be larger and we'll have some more flexibility with course offerings.
So I think what you're hearing is where we've got an open mind to this consideration, and I appreciate your encouragement that we think about it. And yeah, we'll keep that in mind for sure.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks. All right, we've got another couple of minutes. If anyone's got a question that they'd like to throw out there or a comment.
No questions, but it's Sandra again. I just want to thank everyone, Amy, Fred, Matt, you, Dave, again, for another successful, or I know it's only, part of the year already, but still in a pandemic, still trying hard. And it's amazing what the school has done and how our children can thrive in this environment. And I wanted to thank you all.
Thank you, Sandra. I appreciate that comment. And I think what I would say, I'm going to turn it right back at you because there are moments that happen every day where we actively say, we're really lucky to be in this community. And I don't want to make the whole thing about the pandemic, but it's a pretty big influence and has been for some time. And I just have to share with you that the idea that we have such high rates of everything, participation in testing, the vaccination situation. We have other colleagues who have children at other schools where they can't even get to the minimum 10% of testing weekly because families aren't supporting it. And that would be a really, really, really challenging situation if we didn't have that kind of partnership with our families. So a huge part of the strength of this community is the partnership we have. So I appreciate, Sandra, what you said, and I would just turn it right back to you and say thank you for what you do to support our kiddos, your kiddos, and the experience that they're having. That might be a pleasant enough note to say thank you. Someone, was it Kathy who said she's making some dinner, or was that Sandra? Dinner sounds pretty good right now. But I appreciate everyone taking some time this afternoon to join the conversation. Thanks for the feedback that you'll share with us via the survey, and stay tuned. We want to make sure that as we move along with our planning, that we keep folks as informed as possible about what our plans are. So with that, I'll say good night and thanks, everyone.